Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our channel, Doom Productions, to another Filmmaker Hangout, where we talk for a long time, as opposed to our videos where we talk for a short amount of time.
Yeah. Welcome.
And we wanted to do a video that kind of talked about, I guess, our origin story a little bit. Part 1. Part 2 will come in a little bit.
Subscribe for part 2.
Yeah, subscribe for part 2. This is, I mean, every filmmaker has a story about how they got into movies and how they got into making movies. So we wanted to talk about how we got into movies. So what's your earliest memory of movies or memories?
Yeah. It's a weird one for me. I mean, obviously I grew up watching movies. I mean, I remember, my dad, would always watch movies. I got exposed to some films. Like, my fondest memories now are the movies that scared me as a kid because I get exposed to them way too early. Like, Saving Private Ryan, I saw, I think, when I was like 7 or 8.
Jeez.
Like, one of those movies, I don't know what my dad was thinking.
Come on, Jim.
But I know. So I just have this fond memory of the first time I saw a man's intestines outside his body on the beaches of Normandy. Just the fun stuff. And also my brother showing me Aliens. Because he was like, you want to watch a movie about aliens? And I was like, I love aliens, thinking of little cartoon green men on Saturday morning cartoons. And then walking in and seeing xenomorphs bursting out of people's chests.
Yeah.
Changes your whole view on what the word alien means after that. But honestly, like, when I think back to my earliest watching movie experiences, I actually think of all the times I would spend at home on sick days watching either Bionicle movies or watching the behind the scenes of movies I really liked, particularly Star Wars. The webisodes came with the behind the scenes of episodes 2 and 3 of Star Wars. So I'd watch those a ton. And also actually the behind the scenes of Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
Nice.
A very specific movie, but it really, I feel like that movie in particular had a big hand outside of Star Wars to get me into, it kind of helped me take those next steps into thinking about what it took to make a movie and got me interested in that. So it's kind of like a movie I watched, but also the behind the scenes kind of drew me in further.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first movie you saw in theaters?
No. I can remember movies that I've seen, and I know they weren't the first. I remember going to see like VeggieTales in theaters at one point. I was actually scared of movie theaters when I was a kid. They were too loud for me.
Oh my
so
gosh.
I was that kid who went in and had the big headphones on. So my dad had just lawnmower headphone, ear covers on. So I would wear those in the theaters so it wouldn't be so loud. But I can't remember what the movies were. My first big memory of cultural people other than me being interested in a movie was when episode 3 of Star Wars was coming out, and I was in 3rd grade. My teacher had us do a Star Wars spelling bee, and it's like, oh, other people know about these movies. Other people know about Star Wars besides me. Yeah. So I can't, no, but big experiences in the movie theater for me would have been going to see Man of Steel with you and a bunch of other friends. Yeah. And Star Wars as the sequels came out. 'Cause I don't remember going to see the prequels when those were coming out. I don't know if I ever really did. Yeah. I have a weird, memory with movies. It's there's a lot of blank spots for me, but I don't know. But what about you?
Let's see. So you know how when people say they're 90s kids and stuff, and it's I remember what it... there's 90s kids who were born in the 90s, and there's people who actually remember the 90s. I don't remember the 90s, but I remember what was on television, because I was just watching TV all the time. Cartoons and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. But some of my... I loved Peter Pan when I was a kid, because he had the sword. I'm not a big Disney person, necessarily. They're fine movies. I like them fine, but I'm not a huge fan. But Peter Pan I loved. I also loved Star Wars, of course.
Yeah.
We had a VHS recording of episode 4 when it aired on TV. So I would watch that on repeat. I'd watch the original trilogy on repeat. And I think Phantom Menace was the first movie I saw in theater. Well, it was I've been told, I think I actually saw the Barney movie in theaters. That was my first movie. Woo. I don't really remember it. I remember seeing Phantom Menace in theaters, and that was my first movie theater memory. And it I still remember it, and that's how impactful that movie was. But I was like into, what was the question?
What movies, like early movies you saw growing up? What got you? What
movies?
What got you into?
That's right. And yeah, what got you into movie? Yeah, so like I was really big on like Star Wars for sure. The prequels and the original trilogy. Peter Pan. What else? Definitely Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That was more of the books for me, but that first movie definitely it made me want to read the books. And like Lord of the Rings, like because Lord of the Rings was coming out around the same time when I was a kid, and these were like when I thought of like, you know, why I loved movies or movies that were I thought was like the best. It was like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, pretty much. Like it was those, and I wasn't allowed to see Lord of the Rings until they were on like DVD later. My mom was very against the PG-13 thing.
So you should hang out with my dad.
See, my dad didn't care, but my mom was like, "That's too scary." So my dad made like a compromise where he was like, "If you read the books, you can see the movies on DVD when they come out."
That's fair.
So that's what I did. But like to preface that, like that's how serious she was about like Lord of the Rings. But when Star Wars Episode 3 came out, and that was a PG-13 movie. My mom, like, it was that important to me that my mom was like, okay, you can see it in the theater still. And, like, we saw it. That was my first midnight showing ever.
Wow.
And, like, that was, when I think of, like, I think there's times, I think now people still feel it, but, like, when you, like, you're shook at a movie.
Yeah.
Where it's, like, what's the best way to put it? You know what I mean? When you see a really good movie and it all clicks. And, like, you were just overwhelmed with emotions, and you're just like, this is what, like, is movies. Is like, this is amazing. I want this. I love this.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it was Episode 3 when it's the final battle, and it's cross-cutting between Yoda and Obi-Wan. And there's that shot of the Senate building of Palpatine and Yoda fighting, and the camera's, like, going up, and the music is swelling. Like, that, to me, I'm never gonna forget that moment, seeing that in theaters, like feeling that impact of what art in movies could be.
Yeah.
Part of it was also creating it and seeing the behind the scenes like you, but that moment I think really propelled me into movie making. And I did not feel that. I have not felt that like that, you know, very often. But the most recent time was The Mandalorian. And if you know, you know. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
But the season finale of Mandalorian Season 2, that's when I felt that again.
Yeah.
Like going back to being a kid and loving just movies and art and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. What was your second question?
I can't remember. It
What
was,
was- it was-
I asked what the first movie in theaters. Do you remember your first midnight showing? How was that?
Pretty sure it would have been Man of Steel. Did we see Man of Steel at midnight showing, or did we go
Dude,
early?
we were in
It
high
was
school.
early. Okay, so it was earlier. So
See, that was late for me. That was like, oh, this is my 10th midnight showing or whatever.
yeah, I have done few. I think if it wasn't Man of Steel, then I think it was Force Awakens.
It would have been Man of Steel because that was 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Man of Steel then.
Yeah.
Man of Steel. We showed up to Regal 11 in Tigard. If you want
Our
to know
address
our-
is 9. Start reading that.
No, yeah. So that's like a smaller theater for us. Like not that it's a small building, but not a lot of people go there unless you're going for like their $5 Tuesday special. Shout out to Regal. It's not open right now. But we showed up there because we were like, this is going to be great. We're going to see all these fans. We showed up dressed up. You were dressed up as
I had a
Superman.
cape, yeah.
I had my Clark Kent, like, I had a button up, I had a tie that I had loosened, it had the buttons ripped open, so I had my Superman shirt underneath. And, like, we got there early because we were like, we're going to get good seats. Because this theater doesn't, I don't think they might just have started where you have to reserve a seat. By the time it was just like first come, first serve.
I don't even think they still update. I don't think they ever had reserved seats.
Because that's uncommon around here. So it was like first come, first serve. We had to get there early. So we showed up and we were like, all right, we got there, no cars in line. We were like, all right, great, we got there early. So we were standing out. We're like, all right, where's the line at? So they just have us stand on the wall. Because you could tell, they're like, what's up with these dumb kids showing up?
No, they
this
were
early?
definitely like, why are these idiots here so early? They're here like 4 hours ahead of time.
Yeah, so we just stood outside until it was time to go in. And then we got there. hardly anyone showed up to that
Yeah.
theater. So now we don't.
But
Now we go to a different theater.
But I saw Man of Steel like 4 times that weekend, so I got that crowd experience eventually.
Yeah, but it was just we went there with that expectation, and it was not there. We did not make that mistake with Force Awakens. We went to a different theater where there were a lot of people, and that was really fun. We dressed up for that again too.
Yeah, that was fun.
I remember particularly you dressed up as Chewbacca, and a little kid asked for a picture with you.
Yeah,
and that was funny.
But it was just a Chewbacca onesie.
But
It wasn't even
onesie.
like clever, but it was cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like what kinds of? I think most again like with film people, they there's certain types of movie that film people like. But what were the kinds of movies you liked as a kid? Like you mentioned like Star Wars and
I liked
Bionicle.
adventure. Like I wanted to see stuff that I couldn't see in like my normal life. Like I thought, dramas were boring and all that. And I mean, and there's totally a place for those.
They're still boring.
They're still boring. No, but I mean, like I think that those animated. I love Disney. Like DreamWorks were really great. Like I would come and watch those regularly. Shrek.
Yeah,
You can't not watch like those Pirates of the Caribbean. I just wanted to
yes, those were movies I loved too.
Yeah,
yes,
I just wanted to be. I mean, when you're a kid, you just want to see other worlds that are just like totally crazy. You want to see what that stuff that's in your head when you're playing games, and it's like that's the best space to see those crazy adventure movies. But like Bionicle, I was a huge Bionicle fan growing up. I was hardcore. Shout out to the Bionicle subreddits, which are still awesome. But those are the kind of things that you did as a kid. You played with those toys, and so you wanted to see them in action, and so. A chance to get that kind of experience was what you wanted. So, but superhero stuff was always super cool. Spider-Man, like the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. Superman, the old Christopher Reeve stuff I remember watching that. Like, I think those were kind of things that helped me, like, old movies were boring. But, like, that stuff was like, oh, no, it's Superman. So that gets a pass, and it kind of opened that door up to seeing.
And the Dark Knight trilogy. Did you see that?
I do remember seeing those in theater. I remember that, and I remember seeing Iron Man when it came out, the first one. Didn't those come out really close to each other? In my head, they did.
The Dark Knight came out in 2008, and Iron Man came out in 2008.
Okay.
But Batman Begins was 2005.
Okay. Yeah, I remember when Dark Knight and Iron Man were coming out, and I remember seeing those as a kid and being like, whoa, superheroes are awesome.
Yeah.
Because, like, the same Raimi stuff, I mean, it's a bit more lighthearted in some part. I mean, it's not as dark as, like, Dark Knight obviously was.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. As a kid, at least, it felt like that to me.
Yeah, as a kid, yeah.
I mean, Green Goblin was pretty hardcore. And
it's pretty brutal. The end fight of Spider-Man 1 is pretty brutal.
But it's like that the whole time in Dark Knight, where it's like this very... And even though you don't see a lot, I mean, they imply a whole lot with what the Joker does. They really build him up incredibly well without showing much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, those kind of movies.
Superheroes movies were pretty big. I mean, we were around for like the waves of like...
X-Men.
Yeah, because there was like the first... okay, this isn't the first wave, but in the 2000s, it was like Blade, X-Men, Spider-Man,
And
right?
Fantastic Four.
And Fantastic Four. And then there was like the Dark Knight kind of era, but then Marvel like kind of outpassed that. It started at the same time and kind of it's still going on.
Yeah.
So I think superheroes was another one for me. Like Superman's my guy.
Yeah.
I remember. See, I like the movie. I think Superman Returns is a pretty.
I've been wanting
good
to go back
movie.
to it.
I think it's a good movie, and I think it's not my favorite Superman movie, but I still enjoy Superman Returns. But I remember when I saw that in the theaters, it was like this. I remember like feeling the like, oh, you're here to see Superman. Like, it wasn't just like another movie. It's like this guy is important. Like this is meaningful. So I remember going to the theater to see that and it being like this big deal, to see that with my dad and everything, and be like, oh, that's Superman. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But like also like Spider-Man, I loved the Raimi trilogy. I mean, what else? X-Men, I still really love the X-Men movies.
So great.
Yeah. I mean, but was there a point when you were a kid, do you think, when you started to get into more filmmaker type, film bro type movies? Or does that correlate with when you got into movies?
I do think part of it correlates with when I got, like, I do owe a lot to you making me educate myself on movies, because I was I wanted to make movies, but I had like no direction in how. Starting like, I mean, my friends, we wanted to make goofy parodies and stuff. Like I was really into Doctor Who, so my friend and I joked around like all of middle school that we're gonna make a parody of Doctor Who called Medical Assistant Who. You can still watch it on my YouTube channel. It's really bad. But we were gonna make this, and we talked about it all the way until freshman year when I got like an iPod. No, he got an iPod Nano because we shot on that. No excuses to shoot your movie. We shot a movie on an iPod Nano.
That's right.
And it is rough. But anyways, so like I wanted to make movies, and I kind of got to this point where I was like, there's no way I can make this into a career. So I kind of focused on other things for a really long time throughout most of high school. And then when I kind of realized, oh, I can make movies because you were making movies, and we started working together. This is back in like 2012. That's when kind of we would start talking more. You kind of started sharing your influences with me, and you would send me. You would come to like youth group with a brown paper bag with like 12 to 15 DVDs in it, and you would just loan it to me. And when I watched through all of them, you'd bring another one.
It was
and
like
so I'll just get tons
donation.
of movies. Yeah. So that's when I started watching movies like Valhalla Rising, Drive. I'm just gonna go through all those movies. But yeah, like that's stuff that I normally wouldn't look for.
Yeah.
That was just, it's kind of like how, I don't know, you were my equivalent of movie version of Spotify. Where it was like the for you list, but it was curated. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of titles right now necessarily.
I remember giving you Watchmen.
Dude, Watchmen
I remember,
changed
because it was a
everything.
huge, it was the huge.
It's right there.
Still have it right
It's right there. Yeah. Watchmen was crazy. That was my first 300 was my first Zack Snyder experience.
Yeah.
That movie was like, what the heck is this? That was something else. Yeah. And then I'm watching some movies like Sin City, like going into like the really stylized stuff was like, I mean, there are like these phases you hit, I feel like as a filmmaker, and I kind of talked about that with like the Edgar Wright phase. Like that's like, they'll hit these different levels that like kind of like, well, you can do this in movies too.
Yeah.
And like, I grew up on this certain style of, the X-Men superhero, the Sam Raimi superhero stuff. And then Watchmen comes along and it's like completely different than what you've expected and experienced before. And I think that's what's exciting about movies is you get to kind of rediscover different versions of it. And it's just the fact that filmmaking is a living, breathing thing. It's changing, it's evolving. And so getting to kind of get those different tastes as they come is really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you have a... I mean, for me, I think it was like... I was a kid from like 5th to like 5th grade. And that's when I was like... I wasn't actively seeking out stuff, I don't think.
Yeah.
It was just kind of watching whatever came to me.
Yeah.
In middle school, I really started... I probably was doing like the exploration you were doing in high school.
Yeah.
When I was in middle school. Because I remember like seeing like... I would like look up lists of like what are good movies, and I'd watch them. And so I remember like renting Clockwork Orange.
Oh my gosh.
And like my mom didn't know what it was. Like I didn't
no.
But in our old house or our apartment, it was like there was the TV against the wall, and then over here was like my mom's work area. And so I remember I was home sick from school, and I was watching this, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was like, just making sure, because I was really like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
And I wanted to keep watching, but she was also like right there, and I didn't want her to see this horrible like graphic movie or whatever.
Yeah.
That's almost, I don't know, what's more suspenseful as a kid, watching a movie with a sex scene with your parents, or watching a movie with like a even worse graphicness and your parents are right there, but they don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I think someone thinking about, now you bring up Clockwork Orange, I think a particular...
I remember when you saw it for the first time.
That's not what I was going to go into, but that's a great story too. We went to the theater for like was it a double feature? I don't remember. But it was a theater downtown, and they like were screening older films, and one of them was Clockwork Orange, and I hadn't seen it, so you brought me with. And they
called you randomly at like 9 p.m. at night or something.
That was probably one of the best parts of high school, was getting random calls. Hey, you want to go see a movie? But they like asked, hey, like a person came up on screen and gave a little talk.
Oh,
They're like,
yeah,
has anyone
that's right.
seen the like not seen this movie before? And of this whole theater crowd, I am the sole person to raise my hand and say I have not seen it. And the guy points at me, he's like, if it gets too intense for you, just think of it as a comedy, which doesn't help at all in that situation. It was a great experience. But it was just one of those things that like you couldn't have scripted it. It was just such a weird experience.
Yeah.
But no. Oh shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh no. Dang it.
Well, I was just talking about
Kubrick. Okay, no. I was gonna talk about Kubrick.
yeah.
Kubrick, I think, was one of those guys that got me into like filmy movies. Particularly, I think the first Kubrick movie I ever saw was AI, because that was fairly recent at the time. Because it's a Spielberg movie, but written by Kubrick, and he really brought in a lot of that. So I count it as a Kubrick film. But so I saw that growing up. 'Cause I think my dad he would watch stuff, and so if he was out in the living room and I was out there playing, I just happened to watch these movies, and AI was one of them. And then as I got older, like I got to see The Shining and 2001: Space Odyssey first, and then The Shining, and that kind of I think helped kind of develop that taste. Just because those are more filmy movies.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just a common starting ground for a lot of people is Kubrick.
a lot of there's certain filmmakers that you like, everyone like, you kind of like movies, but then you really get into movies, and it's like
Yeah.
Kubrick, Nolan, Tarantino.
The Departed is another one I think I saw
Scorsese,
early.
yeah,
Scorsese.
There's just certain people that are like, that's your gateway into cinema,
Yeah.
pretty much.
But again, like I think I'm pretty slow to like search things out. Like I'm very happy in my bubble sometimes, and so, and it's not that I don't want to watch other movies. Sometimes I'm just like, this is great. Like right now I'm rewatching Pirates of the Caribbean, because like those are just great
Fun,
movies, and
yeah.
and they're just super cool, and I have great memories of them. So I'm watching through that series right now. But I'm always happy to like have a new movie shoved in my face and like you have to watch this, and so.
Now it's harder because you don't have a Blu-ray player.
I don't have a Blu-ray player right now.
So
I have a DVD.
I
I have a VCR though, but it's got a DVD built in too. So man, a high living over here. But I have streaming, so you know.
Yeah,
and that makes it almost hard because it's like
Now
when
you can watch
when sky's the
anything,
limit, it kind of almost like freezes you. But you know, I'm making my way slowly
Yeah.
through movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much time do we got left?
It's a great question.
23 minutes.
We have 23 minutes.
We have 23 minutes.
Oh, we have 23 minutes.
Oh, no.
We are at 23
we're at
minutes.
23 minutes.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
No way I've rambled that short of time.
The camera only goes for 30 minutes, in case you
didn't
didn't know.
If you watched our first episode, you
You
saw what
would-
kind of trouble we got into last time.
Yeah. Okay, then how about this? So, as a watcher, because that's kind of what this has been about so
A
far.
watchman, if you will.
How is where is your taste now? Like, what kind of movies do you like now, compared to like, I mean, everybody's taste changed from when they're kids.
Totally.
But where are your tastes at now?
Has it changed?
Is there 4 or 3 movies that sum up your taste?
Oh my goodness.
That's what they ask on Letterboxd, right? I
Yeah, is that? I'm trying to set up a letterbox right now.
Ooh.
I downloaded it, and then I got to the point where they asked you to make a username, and I kind of froze up, and so I haven't touched it. It's been like a week, so maybe I'll have a letterbox by the time you guys are watching this. Shoot, you know, I can think of. It's hard now. I can think of what I would have described like earlier in my my high school. Like it would have been like movies like Super 8. Like I used to think that was like the movie was Super 8. Then like Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and like Man of Steel.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think like that, you know, we're big Snyder fans here.
Yeah.
So like Batman versus Superman is probably one of the movies I look up to as like, that's just a great movie. But if I'm going to say things other than Zach's work,
You have to.
if I have
Okay, you
to-
got 4.
Okay.
So in terms of summing up your taste,
Let's give me BBS. Give me, what would you say is your taste you sum up?
Gosh, why would you ask that to me?
Because you're asking me.
I mean-
I'm trying to buy some time here. I mean, we should have scripted this out beforehand.
Well, I mean, I like. Same with you. If I like. It depends. I mean, because I love blockbusters. I love like big adventure. So I've been getting into a little bit of CGI kind of editing with like Blender and animation. And so, you know, there's that film mentality of like CGI bad, but like after, and I've never really had that, but I think, I don't know, there's an art and a beauty to CGI and like the massive blockbusters that like Hollywood produces, like Pacific Rim, Godzilla, like that
Transformers.
stuff.
The detail they get in those models is insane
It's
to me.
gorgeous looking movie, and I love that. But I also love that with like when it's mixed with a really compelling story and a message and meaning. Because I think when you're making films at that scale, it has to mean something, and there has to be a reason for that to exist.
Yeah.
Because we can't just have more mindless garbage, which I love. I love mindless garbage.
Yeah.
Like
I watched
love
Godzilla last week. It's great.
I love movies in general. Like no like but ifs, whatever. I like movies, but I really am drawn to like blockbusters like BVS or Man of Steel, or like George Lucas Star Wars movies. Like those are some really compelling movies with the message that speaks to kind of mythology and myths and what it means to be human. I love that kind of stuff, but I also love like weird experimental movies.
Yeah,
we've talked about this before, but like Alejandro Jodorowsky,
yeah,
David Lynch, Maya Deren.
yeah.
I love weird, crazy, creepy, weird movies. That stuff, I love that stuff so much.
Yeah. Now that you bring up David Lynch. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh no, I've been talking.
One of those early movies I remember just now when you bring him up. My first David Lynch movie was Elephant Man. I remember that being such a captivating movie. 'Cause I was a kid, my family is watching this movie, and it's like it's like so strange, and I haven't seen it since then. So I should actually rewatch it, but I kind of forgot that was a David Lynch movie.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those crazy films when you're a kid growing up. You're just like, you have no idea what's going on.
David Lynch is crazy when you're an adult.
I know, when you're a kid and you have like no anchor point to hold on. It's crazy.
Yeah.
David Lynch, though, he's like, I had to put it in directors. I don't know if I can put it in movies at this point now.
Okay,
I think
fair.
I'm developing right now. I think I'm trying to re-solidify myself in what you're asking. But David Lynch is probably one of the people I'd point to as like a pillar. But then like David Lynch and maybe some David Lynch. I don't know. It's so hard to like I said, it's like it's constantly changing and evolving, and I'm finding new people all the time. It's so hard. And then the animation comes in, and like I think we both pull a lot from cartoons.
Hayao Miyazaki. Who doesn't love him?
Like,
I mean,
we have tons of it. Like a lot of our comedy is similar to like Regular Show.
Yeah.
So it's just
Cartoon Network stuff in general.
Cartoon Network stuff,
like
old and new.
In terms of our humor aside, Cartoon Network had a huge influence on us, I think.
And I didn't have that stuff growing up, so I only got to watch it on vacation. So it was like a big deal to go get to watch SpongeBob even to me, because we just didn't have it. So like I only got to watch it when it was on like at hotels that had it when we were on like road trips.
Yeah.
So it was like, I remember like you can see Courage the Cowardly Dog was like a big deal, and I would just sit in front of it.
Yeah.
And that show was weird.
In animation, I mean, that's the true, like, if every no-budget filmmaker could be an animator, they would absolutely do it.
Yeah.
Because you have no restrictions whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, it might take you a lot longer to make a movie, but you could still do it all by yourself, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Check our time. Oh, I think we should wrap up.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
what movies are you guys watching?
Yeah, let us
know. We'd love to hear what some of your most influential movies. We kind of talked about that already in a past video, but still good to hear. Give us some suggestions too. But until then, we'll catch you guys on the next video. Actually, check out a playlist down below of some of our other movies, our other videos we've been working on. Subscribe if you're new. You know the whole thing. If you're here this long, you've probably already done all that already. Yeah. So until then, catch you guys on the next one.